Hey, it's Jeremy from OpticHouse.com. At some point in the future, I don't know when, might be a few weeks, might be a few months, I'm thinking about doing an all Q&A episode. Usually when people ask me questions, they ask them in the comments and I will answer them in the comments and there's a little bit of back and forth and discussion. But if you guys are at all interested in having a video where I just reply in the video to all of your questions, leave a comment and just say for Q&A video. You start off with that and then leave your questions. And I don't know, depending on how many I get, I may do it right away. If there's only one or two, then I may save those questions and let them stock up for a while. If you have a question that you really want answered right away, then don't say anything about Q&As. Just ask the damn question in the comments and I'll answer it. So that's first off the top. I feel a little bit guilty because I ended up brushing one of my cats off of my computer table, well, removing her from the computer table, because she seems to have developed a taste for chewing on the eraser end of my Wacom stylus. So, I mean, I don't know how much damage it can do, but we've got like a lotion bottle that she's been chewing on the top of, and that thing is all gnarled up with like bite marks all over it, and I really don't want my Wacom stylus looking like that, even if it doesn't do any damage. But I have to imagine from how much she's chewed it up that it would definitely do some damage. So yeah, cats on my drawing table. Don't want it to get all fucked up. It's interesting that I'm looking back at these videos and the page that you're watching me draw the layouts for right now, I actually just finished inking a few days ago. And somewhere down the line you'll see a video of me inking that page too. But what really astounds me is looking back at these things, in hindsight and seeing how much of a drawing can be helped, saved, improved, or how many problems can be avoided with proper planning. Because even when I do these layouts, the red pencil part is really me just sort of blocking down, roughing out the idea. When I flip these over and I start drawing in graphite, that's really me trying to solidify the structure of the panel, solidify the details. Even in this phase, I've gone back and when I'm inking, I'm basically inking over these images in blue line, the graphite images, and I can see some structural problems or little things I have to change here and there. And I keep thinking, wow. As I'm inking it, there's stuff that I still don't get right. I go, I flip the page, I look at it, I make corrections. There's still things that don't come out right. And I think if I had fixed this in the layout stage, it would be, inking the page would be so much easier. But yeah, as much as I try to catch all these things, I think it's good for me to be aware of that because it means that when I'm doing layouts for the next issue, I'm going to be even that much more aware. And there's certain problems that I had with this page and the pages of this issue that I will try to avoid in the next issue. Compositionally, structurally, anatomically, things that I realize I'm not drawing right, things that are bad habits I still haven't broken yet, and I'm saying, or I'll choose to say, all right, I have to figure out how to draw this anatomical structure that I always keep fudging and I'm not doing right. I'm always tweaking the way that I'm drawing the wings in each issue and kind of experimenting with different ways of rendering them. All of these things can really be the inking process is really improved by working these things out in my layout phase. And I can't remember if I mentioned this in any of the last couple of videos, but I've been thinking about the fact that I wish I had more time to simply study the craft of inking. Not because I want to ink from other people, but because I want to be a better inker for myself. But I've been thinking about how it would be a good idea to work from the pencils of an experienced penciler and do some inks just because, somebody who's a really proficient penciler understands how to collaborate with their inker and how to lay down lines that indicate what they want. And I believe that doing those things will make me a better penciler as well as a better inker, which will overall make me a better artist. And that really should be the goal of most artists, is no matter what we're trying to do to try to continue our craft, no matter whether it's, comics, illustration, painting, what have you. So always trying to kind of learn, improve, grow, trying to find new ways to do things. And speaking of finding new ways to do things, something else I've been thinking about is experimenting with my process. Like I said, trying new ways to render the wings both when they're spread out and folded with the different archangels. And I have a habit of always being on the lookout for new techniques, new ideas, new ways of approaching rendering form, volume, structure, what have you. And a good friend of mine, who I've mentioned in videos in the past, Carl Altstetter, he's told me that it might be a problem that I tend to jump around and I'm trying to master new techniques instead of just developing a process and really fundamentally working it until I've mastered it. Like always trying to find new ways to analyze structure, volume, storytelling, instead of just sitting there developing a basic process for the penciling, inking, lettering, and doing it consistently over and over and over again until I've got it mastered. And yeah, I would say Morningstar has probably been my most consistent workflow, as this is actually the longest comic project I've worked on. And while I have developed a consistent workflow with it, I know what Carl means because I've known him for a long time, and he's definitely seen me try little wacky ways of doing structure, thinking of, oh, well, let me just try flipping my pages this way or doing it in this different style, or intentionally trying to draw my pages backwards so that when I flip them, they'll just be forward and I won't have to do anything to change that. And yeah, those things are kind of weird, wacky experiments that, just occurs to me to try in the course of working on a comic. But what's interesting is there's a technique that he told me a long time ago to try, which was I usually will do a holding line around the entire figure. And then I will go in, I'll draw all my details, and then when I'm done, I'll add my shadows and my blacks. What he mentioned might really help speed up my production time is to try to not only render my holding line, but to spot all of my blacks first, do all the dark areas of the figure, and then go with my details. Because that way, when I'm going with the smaller brush and drawing details, they really are only the essential details. And it is very true that a lot of times when I would go and do my holding line, then draw my details in, I would draw certain details here, certain details there, but a lot of times end up painting some of them out and just painting black in some areas. Maybe because I realize that structurally those areas really are in shadow. Sometimes just because it wasn't coming out the way I wanted to and the figure had a strong enough silhouette that just making one side of the figure black or one form solid black conveyed what I needed to convey storytelling wise. And there are times when you realize you're not going to catch it, you're not going to nail it, you're not going to win getting that pose the way you wanted it to come out, and you just got to say, all right, well, does this tell the story? Because in the end, all of these lines, every line you put down in a comic book is in service of the story. So I'm not saying that that's an excuse to be a slacker, to cheap out, do stuff in silhouette, but if you cover that the bare basics of it continues to push the narrative forward and the reader can understand it and it's visually pleasing, then that does the job. That's okay. And there's some panels where it's worth busting your ass and spending hours drawing and redrawing and pasting stuff over when things aren't coming out right and pulling tons of reference. And there's some panels where you're like, you know what, I just gotta get this fucking page done and move on to the next thing. So I've tried that technique, the technique of spotting the blacks before I went with my detail a few years ago. I think I was working on I think it was before I even started Morningstar, when I was still finishing my graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. And I tanked it, failed, it didn't work. I just recently, in this issue of Morningstar that I'm inking, issue 5, I tried it again. I don't know why, but again, the whole thing that I started with talking about always experimenting with my technique, wanting to try new things, different things, I gave it a shot. And I think just my understanding of form has improved over the years, and it was really working much better for me because I wasn't just spotting blacks in terms of making patterns of light and dark. I was literally thinking of this blacks that I was spotting as the underside of a form, thinking about spotting blacks in those flat areas, but as one particular direction that a volume or form is facing. And that has made all the difference, thinking of it volumetrically as opposed to flat. That's it for now. Check out my website, optichouse.com. If you enjoy these videos, please share them. Also, sign up for my weekly newsletter to get a free digital download and see what else I'm working on. Go be creative.